Like looking in garbage cans now? Sorry, I'm hearing like noise. I'm hearing noise outside, so I'm like, what is he doing?
It's all good. We're only live, Andrew. Thanks. um, all right, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we all love. This one will be the final recap of Loki. We did one on episode 1, and then we all got busy, so none of us have gotten together to start. But give me 1 second. I just want to make sure.
Looking in garbage cans now?
Oh, I definitely got Andrew talking.
Sorry, I'm hearing like noise. I'm hearing noise outside, so I'm like, what is he doing?
It's all good. Okay, well, my audio works,
Great
so that's
way
good to
to
know. It's a good segue. It's a good segue. I'm just making sure, since I don't have anyone testing audio for me today, just making sure it's live. Usually I ask Karim to actually test for me, but just making sure it's... I don't know where he is. I didn't want to bother him. So either way, again, so we're going to do a recap of the last 5 episodes then, I guess, since we were all, we kind of fell in the way back on that. So we can start wherever you guys want, since there's a lot to... I've got a whole thing of notes that I made as I was watching each episode. I can go through that. Or if you guys want to start us off, that's cool too.
I'm trying to remember like anything beyond the big strokes for the previous episodes outside of the last one.
I mean, I feel like they slowly set us up to there's. I feel like there's. What I'm trying to say is I feel like they're slowly setting us up to understand that a multiverse exists, right? And not necessarily that the TVA is in charge of it, but mainly so the big reveal, right, Kang? I feel like so the main thing is, I think, to set us up the fact that this dude exists and this dude is controlling a lot of the time streams.
I guess. I was sorry, Claire. I was gonna say I guess we could just work backwards from there. So yeah, Claire, what are your thoughts?
So for me, I think this one was the biggest bridge between sort of the Infinity Stone saga with Thanos and the quest for all of those, and the next big antagonist in Kang. And I think one of the ways it did that was in the first episode, it had that drawer of all the Infinity Stones and everything. So it's almost as if it's saying, okay, we'll put those away. Those are useless now. They're paperweights. But at the same time, it followed that pattern where each episode was representative of an Infinity Stone. So in the palette, in some of the themes of the episode, and it ended with the Space Stone, the blue themes, which was also the first stone that we were introduced to in the series. I mean, in the big cinematic universe.
Oh, when he's yeah.
So I think there was a really nice sort of putting that saga away, but also, referencing it in how much it affected, the story up until now. So that was my kind of big picture evaluation.
I mean, I agreed with you on the Infinity Stones coming into play, because I didn't think about it until you and I were talking about it, really. And then when you really go back and try to analyze each episode, you're like, you could find a way to make bits and pieces of that work.
Well, I think the primary one was with the palettes of the major palettes of each episode. And then, it's in the first episode, it's sort of Loki discovering he has a soul, being convinced to work with the good guys. The next one is the Reality Stone with all the red colors. And Loki is sort of trying to question what even is real because of the TVA, that he's coming to grips with, what all the different versions of himself. And then in episode 3, we've got Sylvie, and we're looking at the powers of both Lokis. So the Power Stone, lots of purple palette choices. And then in the 4th episode, it's Loki is changing Mobius's mind about the TVA. So he's using the same powers as the Mind Stone to bring him around. And then, so what do we have left? Green
for
the time. And then the Space Stone is, of course, breaking space open and finding all the multiverse.
I hadn't heard that angle before. That's kind of a neat take on it.
Yeah, sorry, that went on for a minute. But,
no, I mean you have to explain it. It's a good breakdown. I'm trying to.
I know I was supremely wrong on who the big bad was of the TVA. I'm like of two minds of it. Like, yeah,
I forgot what did you say it was? Who did you say it was?
I thought it was going to be Loki.
Oh, you thought it's just going to be another version of him. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Not. It was going to be a Loki that, like, the Loki. It makes. Okay, so it makes a lot of thematic sense because a lot of pretty much most of the show kind of centers on the idea of, like, can a Loki change their ways? Can they break out of their mold? Are they kind of doomed to repeat their mistakes over and over again? And the Loki we're following, he's learning, he's growing, he's changing, he's figuring out, like, hey, I don't have to be trapped in these things that all the other Lokis keep falling into. I can kind of be my own person and figure it out from there. It would have been interesting if the man behind the curtain turned out to be another Loki that maybe got there first, or probably would make more thematic sense if it was a Loki that, instead of finding his own path and changing, he was instead a Loki that doubled down and said, no, fuck you, I'm going to really be the most Loki you've ever seen. Yeah. And as a result, he basically created this entire lie to basically say, I'm doing this purposely to make sure I'm the only Loki that stays on top.
Mm-hmm.
But and at least, like, in terms of, for me at least, in terms of themes and conservation of storytelling within TV, that makes sense. At least, like, how I was thinking about it. Like, that kind of makes sense because it's odd to introduce another villain so late in the game, and then just to have an antagonist come out of nowhere in the 6th episode and be like, this is your guy you got to be worried about. It's this man that we've never even thought about before. I understand from a behind the scenes point and from a marketing standpoint why they went the way they did for it.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Majors was okay. I thought he kind of played it.
Well,
he was good, but I thought he kind of played it like in that weird stereotypical way a lot of actors do when they're told, like, hey, you're a comic book villain, be a comic book villain. They all kind of default to, like, oh, we're going to be crazy Joker.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Well, he's go ahead.
I was going to say, but he's still, I think he still would be, he's still interesting actor to watch for that. And I think he'd be interesting to see, like, if they have him play, like, multiple, like, if they really
he's definitely
like,
playing multiple
iterations and stuff.
He is definitely playing multiple versions of Kang. But in that episode, what we got, I believe, and most of these people online, all the fans online are follow the same suit, was that he is Immortus. Let me make sure I said that.
Yeah,
Immortus.
So I was trying to remember, and I didn't bother to look it up to double check, but the He Who Remains moniker, isn't that assigned to a celestial, that, like, one of the celestial gods that basically is the one that is left behind after all the other ones disappear from that reality?
That I'd have to look up. I know, like, Immortus is, I don't even, I was half and half on saying that he's playing Immortus because I felt like it was a very vanilla version of Nathaniel Richards, who's the name
they didn't really, like, I was gonna say like the most they did was they kind of name dropped that he was King the Conqueror when he says like, "Oh, I've been called a lot of things. I've been called a conqueror and
Yeah, I
this and
mean, he
that and
says
all these other
there's worse
things."
versions of me, and the worst version is Kang the Conqueror, right? But there's this bananas way of doing that character where it's like, I don't know how much of the character you guys have read in the comics, but sometimes multiple versions of him will show up in the same like time stream, and they like combine to like get the job done. But sometimes that ends up screwing them over because it's like two Marty McFlys shaking hands, right? Like
Yeah.
you something like that, you know.
From what I understand in the comics, like I think his, if I understand right, his character is used as like basically duct tape for
Yeah.
stories and continuities where they're like, we have no explanation for this. King did it.
You could do that with any character, right? You can just have Doom show up and being like, "This is all Doom," right?
Well, I guess it's because like Kang, what I know of, like Kang has been assigned to a bunch of characters that originally did not have all that unifying moniker. But then they were
Yeah,
like, at some point, they realized like we should probably clean up this continuity a little bit. We'll just use Kang and sprinkle him in there wherever we can, because
yeah.
he's
I
a time
mean,
traveler and all that.
he's actually a pretty like, if they do it right, he's pretty strong because he can really like fuck with the
Yeah,
multiverse. And that's the I feel so. I was reading this article earlier that said before we went live because I was like, I want to see what new news is happening about this. Apparently, what we saw at the end there, the last like whatever it was, 20 minutes of what's that actor's name?
Jonathan
Jonathan
Majors.
Majors.
Yeah, so the last like 20 minutes of him, like, you know, where he's explaining things and you see the little visuals of the scientists jumping through time and all that was not supposed to go in the episode. They weren't even supposed to reveal Kang, I guess, at the end of this. They were just going to reveal him in season 2.
Really?
Apparently, the idea is they were going to do, because if you remember the trailer for Loki, there's cut scenes where they show like King Loki, and you never saw it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Apparently, there's supposed to be multiple versions that they filmed. There's a version of Loki getting the hammer. There's a Loki as a king. So they were supposed to like, you know, remember where Miss Minute shows up and she promises him all this stuff? We were supposed to get a visual of all that, of like him being a king and him having the hammer in his hand and Asgard coming back and all that stuff. But I think I think when the pandemic happened, it's messed with editing and all that. But they had filmed,
or maybe someone higher up said like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we gotta push our Disney or Disney Plus stuff more, and how
Yeah.
it ties into all of our movies."
I mean,
I think that
Go.
that makes a lot of sense because now that like all the films are streaming too,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
you know, it's sort of, we can push the series as being more vital, that you have to watch the series content in order to understand.
Yeah,
It's-
like if you won't know what's going on if you don't watch some. Like I'm seeing that with a lot of my friends who didn't watch like WandaVision and all that stuff. They're, I mean, to a degree, you can just read up on it, right? You don't really need to see it to know what's going on. But
I was gonna say it's kind of disappointing if that's the case. Like I like the idea of the TV stuff kind of being used as just like additional fluff for the people that really want more of it, you know.
sure,
But if someone only follows like the movies, I think it's the same kind of issue I have with like Star Wars or whatever, where they're just like, oh, if you read the books, you'll understand the characters. Like, no. If you didn't show it to me in the movie, it doesn't exist. Don't pull any of this like book
come on,
stuff.
Andrew.
Or
But the characters get so much richer in the books. I mean, I see what
That's
Marvel's
fine,
doing.
but
I like what Marvel's
you're
doing with their
showing me
characters.
2
So they're,
hours, you gotta show
Yeah.
what you want 2 hours. Yeah.
and I think that's what they're trying to do. It's like, like Claire said, it's a lot of online. It's a lot of Disney Plus stuff, not so much in the theaters. So you have limited time to show certain things. I thought they explained Kang in a really good way without actually saying his name. They had his colors. They had his kind of had his outfit without the face. So like, as a fan, you're watching, you're like, that's Kang. But you can easily be like, I'm Nathan, like, bye.
Yeah.
But I really do feel like that's what they're aiming towards, because he's supposed to be the next villain in Ant-Man 3.
Yeah.
Ant-Man 3, and I think he also will appear in Multiverse of Madness, possibly.
Mm-hmm. So apparently, if you watch that, that should like answer a lot more questions.
What they'll probably do, I imagine, is when he gets reintroduced, they'll kind of give a similar exposition as what they did in this last episode again, just for
Sure.
anyone that is following only the movies.
I mean, I hope
'Cause
people aren't
I-
following only the movies.
Say what now?
I said I hope people aren't following only the movies because it's really confusing if you don't watch the in between stuff.
For I think honestly, I think majority of people probably are in that camp.
Sure.
You figure like your basic, like the average mom or dad or whatever that's just like, oh, here's the summer blockbuster thing that I'm watching, like I'll watch that. And they don't really, they'll maybe watch one or two of the other Marvel stuff if their kids are watching it or something, or if they have a relative that's like, hey, you have to really check out this thing on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think majority of the audience only will stick to the movie just because it's kind of like they don't have that strong of an inclination to seek out the other media.
I get what you're saying. To get us back to Loki, I had a question. For you.
Oh wait, very quickly, point on tying Loki into the films. I believe the head writer of Loki is also doing Doctor Strange: The Multiverse.
Oh, okay.
That'd be perfect.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I can't predict.
No, everything is leading. Everything is leading up to the multiverse because we talked about this in past episodes because I feel like that's how they're going to spin a lot of the other properties they now own into
like
our
X-Men.
Yeah, like into the what they would call the 616 universe, right? That's how they're going to spin it all and throw it all in. And you got to have a reason. Like, how are you going to get X-Men in this universe? Where have they been this whole time? They never existed when New York was being trounced, or Sokovia was being burdened. Like, nobody else came. Like, 5 superheroes showed up, So that is a good question. Where was Wakanda when that was going down? That's a whole separate thing. But I had a question. I was thinking about, like, I wrote some notes here and I said dead Lokis go to their own purgatory. And I was trying to figure out if, like, yes, they fell into their own void, but also, I feel like Kang put them there. Like, he says, like, I put you on this path. I basically made you do the dance. But, like, is it, like, what purpose did it serve to put them all in a void?
Well, doesn't everyone go there? And it's just the Lokis
anyone who is
that, like,
pruned by the TVA goes there, apparently.
Yeah. So it's not just the Lokis. It's just that the Lokis are more likely to survive.
Yeah,
the Lokis are cockroaches, basically.
Yeah.
Well, apparently
alligators.
The alligator was badass, man. Oh, that's the other thing in the article I read about scenes that were cut. Apparently, there was a scene where he fights Frog Thor. I forget what he's called, Throg. Like Loki battles the Frog Thor. And there's all these other extra little things that they've apparently filmed, and then they just, maybe they'll put them in season 2. Who knows, right? But they didn't put it in season 1, obviously. I actually wasn't expecting a season 2. I thought when that was over, I was like, cool, that's a good way to leave us with Kang. And then when they did that stamp at the end, I was just like, oh, that's cool. So
I'm glad they're doing a season 2. I'm frustrated that what it kind of seems like right now is some of the, I guess whatever is going to be in season 2 is probably stuff they should have addressed in season 1, like Mobius and Renslayer, like Mobius and Renslayer, like their story arcs are not at all complete right now. They were just left in the dust.
Yeah, he says they've been friends for 10,000 years, something
like that. But like,
yeah,
we don't see anything like the last scene before Loki gets transported to like the alternate universe TVA is like what's her name? Hunter B12 or is it B52?
B20.
Beef.
No.
B20.
I thought it was B15.
I got it right. Yeah, B15.
B15. Okay. Yeah, so like the last scene we see of any of that story is Hunter B15 like going to the high school to get like pre-variant Renslayer. And
So there's a story there.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Like they don't show anything else with that, any resolution of it whatsoever. Which is like
that was to convince the other TVA members that they were variants.
But what happened? But I guess his point is what happened to the other version of Renslayer.
Well, if you're gonna do 6 episodes though, like, and you're going to introduce Kang, then like I don't know that there's room to do that well within.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna bring it all into like right now. You're left with that. You saw when he goes back to the TVA, nobody recognizes who he is because I noticed that when he's running through the hallways, I'm like, why is anybody arresting him? There he is. He's back, right? But he's just running along. And then they don't remember him when he's talking to Mobius and what do we say? She was B15.
Yeah.
B52 would have been better, but either way, they don't recognize him at all. And then the statue has changed too, right? Like it's now Kang or whoever it was that he met. So it's leaving it wide open for I don't know when season 2's coming out. What's up, Cat? Cat wants in. Loki Cat. But again, I didn't think there was gonna be a season 2. I thought that was a perfect segue to take us to the movies, but that was cool. And only thing I could think they're gonna do with season 2 is fill those gaps that we're talking about right now.
And I hope they do. I guess I just don't want them to leave it as more cliffhanger stuff. I would like to see them resolve some of it going forward. And I guess also now that the multiverse thing is more obvious now, like have it go even crazier.
I mean, it could go out of control. I mean,
we only got like a smidgen of it. I would love to see more.
I was trying to look through my notes.
I mean, the options, given what the TVA can do, the options for them as like a force for someone in the future. And the other thing was so Kang is going to be in the Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. Is that what it is?
Yep.
And that one is the Quantumania. And the one thing I saw online about the actual location of the TVA is could be the Chronopolis that Kang lives in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you get that like that glimpse, and Loki's like, what even is this out the window, and it's all the like.
That's right.
And so if Chronopolis is in the quantum realm and Kang's Citadel is at the center, or is it the Citadel? Anyway, then and Ant-Man and the Wasp are going to be exploring the quantum realm in Quantumania, and that could all be linked together.
Interesting.
I didn't think I totally just gave up on trying to figure out where the TVA was sitting. Like I figured they were in some quantum realm. Yeah, they're everywhere. It's a good way to look at it. Which you can bring in Doctor Strange and you can bring in Wanda into that scenario. Yeah. She is obviously going to be searching the multiverse for her kids. So
yeah.
I had a thought here. Where is it? I lost it in my notes. See, this is why you don't take as many notes as I did.
And I guess if they have Kang, or if they have different iterations of Kang, they can eventually do Young Avengers. Is that right? Because isn't one of the Kangs like Iron Lad?
Yeah, I mean it depends on which versions you want to show. Because like he tells you that there's multiple versions of him, and he's basically keeping them at bay by controlling the time stream in that one specific spot, right? Which also hints at the fact that the other variants are trying to break through. And he also probably is just going crazy doing that for, I mean, whatever the timestamp is, 10,000 years. So he literally says, like, if you kill me, It's like, this is going to become your problem, not mine. Is exactly what he's basically saying. And what do? What's her name? Sylvie stabs him, right? And he literally says, "See you soon," because it's like, you're gonna see me again. And she looks like she has a moment of like, ah, crap, I shouldn't have done that. But they don't really tell you what she's feeling there, because she was obviously angry enough to kill him, right? And I mean, she obviously didn't get what she wanted out of it.
I mean, Loki is always kind of a chaos agent, so the fact that her doing that brings chaos is like, what did you expect?
I mean, I guess if you want to call it irony on that, is she did not want to be known as a Loki.
That's true.
She insisted, don't call me that, and then she didn't want to be a Loki, and then she stabs this dude and basically brings chaos forward. So I just came up with that. We also had a discussion in our groups about it was a mixed bag of people who were very upset that Loki kissed Loki. Well, Loki kissed Sylvie if she doesn't want to be called Loki. And I was on the boat of whatever, like he's always been a character who's been in love with himself, right? And all about himself. So no surprise that he would fall in love with himself.
Yeah,
to a degree.
I think I was on sort of the other side. I didn't like totally freak me out, but I thought it kind of it just kind of cheapens the moment, I guess, for me. Like, of course, like, everyone secretly adores Loki, and I mean, Tom Hiddleston is so great, and but it just felt like, I don't know, like, okay, she's kind of the only
This is more than glass and steel.
Woman character person in there, and I mean, there are other characters, but they're sort of antagonists or jumping in and out, and so she's the only woman who has a relationship with Loki, and they make it into something vaguely sexual, and it's just like, you couldn't help but go there. And I just thought, like,
I didn't think they really pushed it that hard. I mean, I get what you're saying. I didn't think it was, I don't know. I guess I didn't think they pushed it that hard to the degree of, like, you weren't the only one online who, a lot of people are upset by that, right? Like, when they kissed, they were like, what the hell? And I was just like, I felt like she kissed him so he would drop his guard, and then she shoved him through that door, which she shoved him through the first door she opened. She did not shove him back into the reality he was supposed to go to, basically, right? Yeah. Obviously, because he's in a reality where nobody knows who the fuck he is. So, I was also like, how did she know how to work that thing to open it? I mean,
well, she's had her own temp pad for however long she was on the run.
But she had like that phone, right? Or did she have the thing on her hand? Because
she had like the little
gold phone,
the little tablet thing, and and I guess he has like a variant version of it. Yeah, but it's I mean, that's like you can run with that logic, because you're like, okay, it's like similar tech. She knows.
Sure.
She's been around it long enough. She knows what to do with it. And I'm kind of with you, Alan. Like, I know I took the kiss more as like, it's not really sincere. It was her getting Loki to drop his guard so she can get him away, so she can fulfill.
I mean, I get Claire's angle of like, they could have probably done it a different way without expressing that and weirding people out. So I get that.
And I just think, like, I mean, no matter how much Loki has changed, he hasn't changed that much that he would be like tricked by a woman kissing him. Like, I guess that for me was like a character bizarrity, that as, I don't know, it didn't quite land for me, and I'm not like furious about it.
No, I think like,
meh.
Yeah,
I think you can make the argument that he was at least in that moment, he was genuinely trying to change, because he even says earlier, like you can't trust anyone, I can't be trusted. Let's meet halfway on this or whatever. And then he does, like, I think, like, in the lead up to that moment, and then when that moment actually occurs, like, he is actually trying to make a change in that instance, and be like, I know normally I am backstabber and all that, but I'm willing to, like, drop my guard for you on this.
Right.
I trust you on this, or I'm at least showing you that I trust you on this. And then Sylvie, you could argue that Sylvie basically doesn't change within her direction at all. She's still focused on what she wants to do and what she wants to be.
I mean, her mission has always been to get to the guy. My voice just cracked, but that's okay. Her mission was always to get to the guy who did this to her, because she's been on the run for, like, forever. It's not like she's been on the run since she was a kid, basically, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like she expresses that she's had no friends, she's had no family. So yeah, I mean, she does whatever it takes to get to the target. As one way looking at it. So I also have some notes about Secret Wars, because I feel like what this is leading up to is Secret Wars, which is a huge, so I wrote down, I think I got this from the Den of Geek. And it says, the multiversal war idea that plays so heavily throughout Loki also ties into Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run, where the multiverse has been collapsing onto itself due to the acts of the Beyonders. The entropy destroys everything. Various Earths are pitted against each other and are given the choice of destroying the other or both dying. While this led to a single world run by Dr. Doom, Reed Richards was eventually able to overtake him and bring him back. So the multiverse, what this is talking about is the last Secret War, where multiple versions of our worlds are all colliding, and then it comes down to two, and then those last two combine into one. If you were to take it this way, it'd be crazy, because what ends up happening is it creates a multiverse where Doom is God.
Oh yeah.
Which is what I was telling you guys to read for an episode. But I don't think they're going to take it that far, because you want to introduce Kang. You don't want to introduce Doom yet, right? But I feel like they're kind of leaning into the idea of the multiverse, which could lead into an idea of Secret Wars, because it'd be perfect, minus the Doom being a god angle.
Well, just thinking through what they've done so far, I could see that being, like, the next big villain, though. Like, just like with Thanos, where he's sort of introduced gradually and his objectives are scattered through, and then there's the final big confrontation. Kang would be this sort of saga's big villain, and if that wraps up with his defeat, you started this part of the epic with expanding the multiverse. The next part would be collapsing it down.
So like start with Kang and then end with Doom?
Yeah,
that would work.
That would be my, like, big arc interpretation prediction.
That's probably a way they'll do it. I'm sure.
I just think, go ahead.
Go on. Oh, I was gonna say I saw. It's not a theory. It was more like an idea floated about this past weekend, where you could take the Kang character that we saw in Loki. That's basically the end point of all the Kang stuff, and it's like because he's all trapped in time and everything like that, it's a giant circular loop, and all the multiverse stuff and all that is just basically going to end up with him back there, and then the events just starting back over for him again. in a weird, and you can kind of end up as like you never really defeat Kang. It's just it all just ends up getting recycled.
It kind of gives you a hint of the fact that he has traveled back and forth so much, he knows everything you're going to do. He shows you the notes, right? Where he's like, I already know what you're going to do up until this X point. And yeah, they show it to you in like a written form so your brain can process it, I guess. But Kang can go through multiple eras, and that version we see in this episode is stuck there, right? Because he's decided, I'm going to stay here and control everything and keep everything at bay.
Yeah.
But when now these variants are going to come in, the evil version of him can do exactly what you're saying, right? He can go back in time and stop something from happening, come forward in time. Because if you just read up on in the comic books themselves, he's kind of a cool villain when used correctly.
Yeah.
He's not just like this dorky dude that shows
Well,
up.
I was gonna say you could argue that this is. I wouldn't say he's a good version. He's just the lesser evil choice.
I mean, he's obviously fracking with people's lives and times, and it sounds like everybody in the TVA is a variant. So that means what happened to I'm guessing the original versions of them are still alive, and that's probably like Renslayers is the that high school. It says FDR, so that pen and that high school, right? So like that's like the real version of her, or Alpha. I don't know what they call the main version, the original version, and then you have the variant. So what's now learning the version that we have the TVA is a variant. It sounds like everybody's a variant. So like the original version of Mobius is obviously on a jet ski somewhere because that's what he dreams about. People are like, we didn't get him on a jet ski. I'm like, because he's the variant, you know. The variant doesn't get the jet skis, I guess. So there was also an interesting Easter egg. That was that weird sound you heard because my cousin sent me a link and I was like, what is this? Apparently there's a ship in the beginning when you see like the opening and they say we think of time as a one-way motion, one small step for man. There's a spaceship that goes by and everyone's hypothesizing that that's the Fantastic Four, which is whatever. It's a spaceship, so
but there is a Fantastic Four project that is in the works, no?
Yeah, so it says also if you pause quickly enough hearing Neil Armstrong's quote, you can see what looks like the Quinjet that Natasha, Clint, and others traveled to space in during Avengers Endgame. And it does kind of look like a Quinjet, but I want to believe that's the Fantastic Four. But yeah, there is a Fantastic Four. Apparently the movie's already being... rumors is starting up soon, but nobody knows. I mean, I would guess by now if it was starting up, we would know who the actors are, which we know nothing about. So, but again, this would be a perfect way to bring them in because there is a version where Reed Richards has to fight Kang, and he brings together the multiverse versions of himself. And if you read Secret Wars, there is a version of Reed Richards from one. I think it's so the last two multiverses exist. There's a super smart version. I mean, they're all super smart, but there's a kind of a dastardly version of him. That's because the 616 Reed Richards is always trying to save everybody, if at all possible, without killing people, right? But the other version, the second multiverse that's about to die, that version doesn't give a fuck about you as long as he gets what he wants out of it. And those are the last two left in the Secret Wars. And I don't want to give too much away, but they do exactly what they're supposed to do in that series. But it would easily lead to this. My point is, there's a version where Reed has to fight Kang, and he brings multiple multiverse versions of himself in to stop him. So, I mean, that could be an angle. I don't know how they're going to do this Fantastic Four, but knowing Disney and Marvel, they're going to do it in such a way, it's like you're going to just fall out of your seat. You know, I'm probably going to jump through the roof. I'm trying to see what else I put in my notes here. See, I write random things down. Loki and Sylvie walk up the steps. You can see hourglasses. Big whoop. But that's right after that is when the Miss Minutes pops in and scares the bejesus out of you. It's called the Citadel at the end of time.
I do wish I got to see more of the Loki variants. It was great seeing the classic Loki, the Richard E. Grant Loki.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see more of the. I believe he's called Boastful Loki, the Loki that was able to wield Thor's hammer.
Yep.
Yeah, well, was able to. but I
He's able
mean,
to lift it.
I
You don't
I
think he's
didn't
able to?
see
He's
him
holding
bring
it.
you- No,
Oh,
You're saying that's definitely Thor's hammer, or
No.
did he come up with something and is lying to everyone?
that's
Well,
true.
so I did look up that character because I guess that character has been thrown into the comics before or whatever. He's known as Boastful Loki, and he's the Loki variant that, for some reason or another, God help us, was proven worthy enough to wield Mjolnir.
Huh.
He was? How?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, that doesn't necessarily confer like he has lightning powers or anything like that, because as they've kind of established, like that's basically Thor's inherent ability. It's not like a thing within the hammer itself. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I guess for me, everything out of his mouth, I was like, no.
yeah,
mean,
he did seem
This
like
is
he was lying a
nothing
little
close to the
more
truth.
extra. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hoping to see like a Beta Ray Bill in there somewhere. That would have been great. My voice just cracked again. I don't know what's happening.
I was gonna say, going back to the Frog Thor, they did have Frog Thor as a quick Easter egg.
So one of the things I'm gonna have to send you guys the article, because one of the things in there they said there was a battle supposed to happen between Loki and the Frog Thor. Wait, I said this already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's there. There's something that you reminded me of when you said the multiple Lokis. There's supposed to also be a battle between Miss Minutes and Loki and Sylvie when she first appears. She's apparently supposed to be an advanced version of whatever Jarvis is, right? He's an AI, right? Or Vision. But she's supposed to be like, because if you remember in, I think it's episode 2, where he's trying to swat her with like a paper, and she just kind of jumps away, and he says, "What are you?" And he's like, "Are you real or are you a hologram or something?" I forget what he says to her, and she's like, "Well, sort of." So she doesn't really tell
He
you
says
what she
like,
is.
"Are you live? Or are you pre-recording?"
Yeah, that's it. And apparently, there's supposed to be this, like, she's supposed to go from this cute-looking clock to this menacing whatever, and I don't know what that whatever is because nobody knows.
She was already kind of menacing.
But I mean, when she fights, yeah. She's just creepy, man. Like, when she showed up, it spooked me for a second because I wasn't expecting her to be there. But, you know, again, this is all stuff that got cut or for some reason they didn't use, which, typical Marvel stuff, right? There's always, like, 4 hours worth of footage that they could have used and they didn't. I also have in my notes that, remember when when they're in the Citadel and they walk into that room and there's 3 statues? If you remember, there's one that's crumbled and on the floor, and I didn't know what the heck that was. I couldn't remember, so I had to Google it. But it says you can spot the statues of 3 people plus one that is broken. And what it is it represents the 3 timekeepers you know about. You saw them all, the androids or whatever, floating, right? In the comics, He Who Remains actually created 4 because Kang created the timekeepers, right? They were actually a thing. But you don't know where the hell they are right now. But the one that's not there is called Oracle Siwa, and that one was exiled for some reason. And that's why the statue, my guess is that's why that statue is broken and laying crumbled, as in this person doesn't exist anymore. Maybe.
Huh.
And seeing as the other 3 are still standing, that makes me think there's still 3 timekeepers out there. Let's see what else. I'm trying to see if I have anything important. It says, I wrote, this is from BuzzFeed. I wrote, Kang the Conqueror is as fearsome as Thanos. He's basically made up of dozens of identities, various timelines, which you know. So he's from the 31st century. He was a scientist. We know that.
Yep.
So he said, this is one thing I thought was interesting. As he was learning about all this stuff, the other versions are learning the same thing at the same time. So it's like somehow the version we're looking at in the show here was smart enough to figure out what's going on to cap him. So he was just X amount of time quicker, I guess you could say, than the other ones.
He did say he was the only one that harnessed the power of that monster, the Eliath.
Yeah, the Eliath.
And that basically gave him the upper hand to dominate over the others.
Yeah.
That's right. But he never really tells you where did that thing come from. Like, just happened to find it.
He mentioned it. It's a creature that is the result of all the basically them hopping around in all the multiverses, causing
it's like a chaos being.
Yeah, causing tears in the fabric of reality and time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he was the only one that basically looked at it, noticed that this thing was being created, and feasting on all their time fuckery and going, "Hey, I can use that as a weapon."
Yeah.
Oh, here's two interesting. Well, I wrote he who remains. His outfit is very similar to that what various Kang variants wear in the comic books, which I already said. Purple is the signature color, and Immortus, a Kang variant from the comics, has similar gold symbol on his chest. He's wearing like this gold locket or something, and that's exactly what Immortus is wearing. That's, I think, what gave me that idea. But I also have this note on I talked about the pens. I didn't remember that they were actually in our office. We finally know that the pen Mobius kept using in Ravina's office in episode 2 and 4 is related to her variant. I didn't remember this, but apparently the pens he's using there are on her desk already. So
yeah,
I don't know if that suggests that Renslayer knows about her variants or as high school teachers. That's what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah, I noticed that one, and I think it's indicative of like the variants. I mean, it's how B-15 like can actually convince the TVA hunters and so on that like, there's some intrinsic like part of them that they take into the TVA, that they're like little bits, little sort of clues for themselves.
Oh, so they can remember who they are.
Yeah. I mean, because all the Lokis kind of like accept themselves because they can all identify like a piece of themselves in all of the others.
Right.
And so I think, Loki is an exceptional being, and so they don't need like a thing, but I don't know. It's a question I had as to how she got it, but I think
that's what I wrote in my notes. My guess is she knows about her variants, and that's why she's hanging on. Because right under it, I wrote, and this is again, I found this on BuzzFeed, but it says behind Hunter B-15, you can spot her real name on her diploma, which is Rebecca Tormenit, which I didn't know until I looked this up, but Ravonna Renslayer is the name, is her real name, but the Rebecca is the name she uses when she's trying to apparently get away from Kang, which I know in the comic book she's like his, I don't know if you want to say love interest or significant other, because the rumor is like, remember when Miss Minute shows up and gives her the notes on her thing, and she goes, "This isn't what I asked you for," and Miss Minute says, "Yeah, but he thinks it's important for you to read." So like he sent her information. What I think is he sent her coordinates, and that's where she steps into. So.
Probably I can see that.
So it's like, where does she go?
So is she going to be the like major villain in season 2?
I mean, she will either be a villain or she'll be like a villain's sidekick. I guess it depends on what angle you want to go with her, because in the comic book she's initially with him, and then I think she's against him at one point, tries to get away from him. But of course, it's Kang, so it's like, how do you run away from something that knows where you are at all times?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I just think because this is like a spin-off series, then
Sure.
Kang would not be like the main villain in season 2. It would be like spin-off series with spin-off villain.
Yeah. I mean, you mean like send Kang one way and send her back to season 2?
Yeah, that Kang, now that he's introduced, becomes like the big villain through the films, and her story doesn't get so much explained in the films, but she becomes a major character of the series.
I mean,
That just gives them the option to develop both of them in two separate spaces while still having them connected.
That's a good way to look at it. The last thing, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, she would be a good villain. I just can't remember what her, like, if she has any cool abilities. Like, how controversial she would be to being the villain. Unless she's just on her own mission to figure out her own life. Because she says, like, what did she say? Like, going to search out reality or something?
Yeah.
And you're going to get bumped around because remember, they show the time streams now. So my last note here says, this is going to directly impact, I wrote Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, because what's going to happen is everything's branching out and Strange is going to have to go get involved. He's going to be one of the people involved in fixing it, because technically in the comic books, I don't remember what they're called. I think they're called the Illuminati in the comics too, but it's Strange, Black Panther.
Yeah, they are called the Illuminati,
right? And they're the ones that come. It's Reed Richards, I think Captain America, and these are the individuals that all come together to try to fix the multiverse. And that would be a way to bring Reed Richards in. I don't know. I'd like to see a Fantastic Four movie already. I'm jonesing for one. As much as people don't like Fantastic Four, but I also want to see X-Men.
I do think it now makes a lot more sense that there were all the rumors about all the different Spider-Man actors.
The worst kept secret in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
the worst kept
and before I was like, what is happening? This sounds ridiculous. Now that it's going to be, is it the first big film? So I think Shang-Chi and Eternals are both series, right?
Yeah.
No.
Eternals is a movie.
Eternals is a film?
movie, and Shang-Chi's a movie as well.
Oh, it is?
Oh, damn.
Yes.
I thought it was a series.
Why did I think it was a series?
No, that one's a movie.
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Showtimes. Yeah. All right, I'm in.
Okay. Because I think I was totally wrong.
we only have the next thing is the What If series for TV.
Okay.
And then after that, the only thing that I believe we know of for sure is that there's going to be a Loki season 2. We have no idea what their next round of television will be otherwise.
So I think they're going to try to work
She-Hulk.
Oh yeah, sorry,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they're going to. I like the what ifs aren't just going to be like what if, like the comic book where they just kind of throw everything at you. But I think the what ifs are supposed to be what's happening when the multiverse gets affected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the kind of speculation I heard too.
And that's the way. It's just a way to keep it all in that same thinking, right? They want you to keep thinking. Marvel's doing a good job of saying leading into it, multiverse. So when it happens, you're not like, what's happening? You already will be like, oh, this is the multiverse effect or whatever the fuck they're gonna call it. I think it'll be fun.
I think this is they're doing a good job because they have to keep the non-comics fans invested.
I mean, yeah,
because I think the average the non-comic reading public / average casual viewer who just wants fun superhero stuff,
right,
is going to I don't know, without a solid transition from where we were to multiverse events. I think the average viewer would just be like, I don't get it.
I mean, I think they're doing a good job of appeasing both crowds, right? What's his name? Kevin Feige has said, we're obviously going to use the comic books as reference for what ideas we want, but we will not use them 100% because these are made for movies, not made for. So it's basically, not made for comic book, because he's saying you can't. There's no appeasing. I myself am probably on the low tier of fanboys where I'm just like, okay, I got the character I wanted. He did the thing. I didn't really agree with it, but whatever. right? I'm happy that I got to see that character come to life in a movie. I'm fine. But then you have that high tier fanboy who's just like, everything should burn. No one should give them money.
Oh,
Blah blah blah
yeah,
blah blah.
those types are, you can never please those types.
You can
anyway,
never
'cause they
please
just
them.
want they just want to see it verbatim, which
And that's what
is
was happening with
that's
all
a
the movies.
mad task.
You can't. It's
but
impossible.
I feel like they're still watching the films though. So
Sure they are.
Yeah.
like, the producers don't care. It's like, you're hate watching, fine, you're still watching.
Yes.
I am curious to see going forward how they're going to thread the needle of introducing all these new ideas and stuff, and I guess keeping people well informed on it, because I do know, like, as we were watching like the last episode and stuff of Loki, I knew enough about all of it that, like, once Jonathan Major showed up, I was like, oh really? Like, I think I said out loud, like, I can't believe they actually went the way they did with this. I thought they were totally going to go a different route. Meanwhile, my wife, she didn't say anything until like the very end, and then at the end she was like, wait, so who the fuck was that?
Right. Right, and
she didn't keep track of it at all. Like, she doesn't keep track of any of this stuff at all. Like, she just kind of pops in and watches stuff as it's interesting to her.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, so you have, like, this is a prime example. Like, when my wife and I watch the movies, like, she's taking away from it what Claire is saying, the exciting, the adventure, the mystery of this character she knows nothing about. Whereas, like, you and I, Andrew, or maybe even Claire is a comic fan. I don't remember if she knows about Kang or not, but Andrew and I then we're jaded, right? We kind of knew who that character was. So, like, the mystery of it is kind of us playing this guessing game. Like, is that Kang? Is it? Maybe? Is it? Let it be Kang. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter an ounce to our wives, right? Or to that fan, which is what Marvel wants. That's the fan they're leaning into.
Like, before everyone started talking about, like, possible multiverse stuff with back before, I want to say, like, shortly after they announced, like, Multiverse of Madness is when they first people started speculating about Kang and stuff. Like, I was like, I don't know who that is. I'm gonna have to look this up and see who it is. And then that was like, going down the internet rabbit hole as it is. He's
always been kind of like a I always like his character, and like Ultron is another prime example. When Marvel made Ultron, they like made him, and I was like, how are they gonna handle this character? Because he's been known to fuck with time streams. And, because there's a version of him that takes over, and mutants are hunted, everything's being killed, right? Like, and Kang is the same level of crazy, right? If there's versions of Kang that have so, like, Inhumans, they had a series called Inhumans, which didn't really do well because they handled it poorly. But if I remember right, that was the, oh crap, what's his name? The head, the X. Yeah. Is he the X? That dude who constantly screwed up Marvel shows for us, right? But if they were to reboot Inhumans, there's a version where Black Bolt's son apparently is in servitude to Kang, and it's actually a really cool series. But these are characters that have to be done a specific way, or it's just going to be confusing as hell.
Which I don't think they will use Inhumans at all going forward. Especially, I wish
they would, but now they're not going to, because they have mutants, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what'll be the big test for that is which I just remember now, is like they have the Miss Marvel TV show coming out next year, and how they approach her will pretty much telegraph how they plan to weave that.
I mean, if they make her an Inhuman,
I'm sure that it's going to be like, oh yeah, mutant, go with it.
I mean, I really hope I honestly think I hope they lean to the Inhuman angle, because I love Inhumans are a cool series. They were created by the Kree, right? They're like a cool set of species. Like, yes, they appear to have mutant abilities, but they're pretty strong. I mean, they're almost stronger than, like, Black Bolt, right? He can't even let air out of his mouth without destroying everything in front of him. Yeah, just and he's the king.
But I guess it's because they have, again, like, because they have mutants, and because they're now doing the Eternals, which is basically like the higher class version of like the Inhumans group, they're probably just gonna quietly.
Yeah, but you're not gonna call the
shuffle them off to
Eternals.
side.
You're not gonna call the Eternals mutants. They're
No,
like
no, I don't think
celestials.
I don't think
Yeah.
they will call. I don't think they'll call them mutants, but they'll probably fill the niche that those Inhumans filled, like Black Bolt and all of them.
I get it. Oh, yeah, see, it says the Eternals are a
Yeah.
race of godlike beings locked in a millennium-old conflict with the less evolved deviants and their originators, the Celestials.
Yeah,
So the Celestials
Yeah,
are lower than the Eternals?
No, the deviants the Celestials create.
Oh,
So
okay.
the Celest is that, I think.
It says Eternals are a race of godlike beings locked in a millennium-old conflict with the less evolved deviants and originators, the Celestials, and their originators. So that
Yeah,
suggests
so
that the
the
Celestials are not
Celestials-
evolved.
Oh,
Al-
that's saying that the Celestials created the deviants and the
Yeah.
Eternals are fighting the deviants.
Oh, got it.
I'll have to share a link with y'all of Movie Bob's explanation. Like he had like
Yeah.
a 3-part explanation of like the Eternals, and listening to it, I was like, this is a tangled web of nonsense. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because I don't know enough about the. I mean, we're deviating, but
Yeah.
we can do a whole
Well,
thing
like
on Eternals once we learn about
Thanos
it.
is allegedly a deviant. If you want to
Thanos?
go with that
They-
route. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
that tangled of a mess.
Did they
Okay.
have a trailer or a teaser or something for the Eternals recently?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a trailer.
Because when I watched that, I was confused and I thought they were the Celestials. So, like, yeah, they're gonna have to do some serious explaining to make that work.
Like, I don't think
Yeah.
they've shown. Is Ego a Celestial?
He says that he is. He actually uses the words like, yeah, he's like, I'm what you might call a celestial, like a living god, like small g, as he says.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, this list is way too long to look at. I'll look it up later. There's a lot of them. Oh, yeah, that's what it is, because Ego is notable celestials. Because they show some of them in Guardians 2, right? Where the Collector's explaining to you where the stones came from and all that.
Oh no, that's in Guardians 1. Yeah, when
Oh,
they're
it's Guardians
going
1,
to
right.
Nowhere, which I guess also was a
It was also celestial. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then yeah, there's a shot when they're showing like what the Power Stone can do and all that. There's a very obvious like Jack Kirby looking celestial
Yep.
in that flashback kind of thing.
And apparently Star-Lord is a hybrid celestial. Okay. All right, well,
yeah. It's a
let's,
mess.
let's get out of this. Yeah, I could see. Welcome to comic books, right? At least those series don't get retconned as much as X-Men. X-Men, I think.
Yeah.
I think X-Men has the title of the most retconned series in any comic books.
That tracks. I was
Yeah.
gonna say this is what happens when you have like the same characters for how many decades now? 5
5, I think. Yeah.
ish.
I mean, they just rebooted X-Men from 1.
Yeah.
Um,
You tend to start getting to weird timey-wimey stuff as a result.
I mean, and then this is exactly another reason why they're not going to use the comic books as a prime example for movies. Because if you stick with your own stories, like how they have not called Wanda a mutant, she's got these enhanced abilities, but they're not using the word mutant yet. You know, they're projects, or she was a oh shit, what's the term they used? Whatever.
Well,
I don't remember. But you get my point.
Yeah, I was gonna say in WandaVision they eventually called her a Nexus being.
Yeah,
In
that's
the
it.
end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she's.
I forget what they referred to her beforehand. I think they just called her and her brother the twins.
Yeah, they're like experiments essentially, right?
Yeah.
They powered on when they touched the
Activated their latent ability, their how do you
mutant
say
ability.
their gene.
Yeah, their X gene. They were both teenagers. It's perfect. It's just not. they can do it now. They can use the term now. They couldn't then. But let's move on. We have to close out because we're over an hour. But is there anything else that you guys saw that you want to talk about in there? Because I really didn't see any other wild Easter eggs. My guess is, the next season's going to be Kang, or like you said, Renslayer.
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask, like, if you want to close this out, like, how did you feel about the series overall compared to the other two for both of y'all?
I thought it was, I talked about how I thought it was a really good bridge between kind of the Infinity Saga and this next great antagonist. And I think that focusing it on Loki himself, who has always been like sort of a catalyst throughout, he was the one who brought in Thanos directly, and now he's bringing in Kang directly. And so there's a lot of nice symmetry there. And so I think going from Wanda, where you're like, you're dealing with the trauma of what happened at the end of Endgame, and then you have the next bridge, which is like, look, the gang is getting back together.
I don't know. Like, I liked WandaVision for what it was, and I liked, Winter and Falcon and Winter Soldier just felt like action for the sake of action, maybe building up the characters, but I didn't really take too much from it. But this one, I felt like I wanted to know more every week. So I felt like this one kind of capped it all off pretty well. Also, I'm constantly looking at threads and forums. So in my head, I was like, I'm excited for a Kang reveal, because who's the next big villain? Which could be Kang. You and I, when we were all talking in our chat, I thought it would be Doom, right? Because we saw that castle, and I thought, oh, Castle Doom, that would be great. But then I was like, that's not where Castle Doom's gonna be. Why would it be sitting in the middle of a nebula? But I don't know. I feel like I would go Loki, Wanda, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier for the message it was trying to send, but it just didn't. All it did was give us a reason to be like, this guy is Captain America. Deal with it.
I think it was a victim of 11th hour rewrites, because I do know, like, the original plot was more focused on there being like a pandemic going on, and there was a pandemic going on, and the governments that were reestablishing themselves were also withholding vaccines. That was what the Flag Smashers were about. They were like, we want this thing to be available to everyone, and then obviously COVID happened, so then Disney said, we should rewrite this. We need to rewrite all of this now.
This is not going to end well for anybody.
Yeah, so for better or for worse, there's huge chunks of plot that doesn't make sense now, because they basically had to tear out like huge parts of the story.
I think they took 2 episodes away from it, they said, which is almost 2 hours, right?
Yeah. Well, I do know there's a lot of parts where it sounds like they should be talking about basically what's happening to the bigger world, and they're very vague about it. And it's very vague, or it's ADR'd in some way or another, like off camera, or someone's back is talking. It's like, you can put whatever you want in that mouth then.
Right. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah. I mean, that's...
Yeah, and I guess for that reason, Falcon Winter Soldier is at the bottom for me as well. And I think WandaVision and Loki are kind of tied for me for different reasons. I liked WandaVision's story a bit more. It felt more complete than this one for me. I like 80 to 90% of this. And I thought it was all, like, story-wise, it was pretty good up until the end, and then I thought it kind of fumbled a little just because it had to tie itself into the larger thing. I would have preferred it to be more self-contained with its own deal. I understand why it did that. I think for me personally, I would have liked to see it go in a different way. I really loved the cinematography throughout the whole show.
Yeah,
That
that definitely was
phenomenal.
done really well. I like the
Yeah.
old, like, it had, like, the TVA has that old, like, nostalgic
Yeah,
look
the like
to it.
art
Yeah.
deco look to it.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, I mean, I'm going to say Stranger Things, but it's just that era. You know, it's got that vibe.
Well,
Like,
it's
and
like
nothing there looked
the
new.
classic Office.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of old sci-fi movies. You know, like they're using like the chunky keyboards with the stupid ass small monitors, and you're in charge of the universe. You don't have like crazier equipment than this. Like the stuff that shows the timeline is just like this orange line that looks like Tron. Like, you know, and I'm just like, okay. But your brain accepts it for what it is, right? Like these guys are doing important work, you know.
Yeah.
But okay, well, let's wrap this up. I don't think we had too many viewers tonight because it's late, but I usually get multiple hits at the end of the show once I take it to YouTube. But thanks for being on, guys. I appreciate it. I know it's pretty late by all of us. I don't know what time it is by Claire, actually.
Well, I think I'm the same as Andrew. It's like
Yeah, I was gonna say you're Eastern, right? Because you're in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it's 8 by it's 9 by you guys? No.
10
I think
here.
closer
10.
to 10.
You're an hour ahead of me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't
Ahead
know
in
what my
time.
next episode is. I think I'm gonna do an episode on Secret Wars with Carrie and John Peterson. I don't know who else is joining us. Deneen might. I don't know if she's read it. But yeah. So if you tune in next week, we're gonna do one on Secret Wars, which is what we were talking about earlier with Doom. Otherwise, thanks for watching. There is an idea of doing this in audio format too, so I'll let you guys know. Let me take us offline.